In thanking the development group and everybody here, because you're all looking for ways to make some positive changes. Benson was a wonderful place to grow up. It's still a wonderful town. I consider myself fortunate to have grown up here. But what we are trying to do is make positive growth changes. And that gets down to why we're here, talking about bringing more production in. I think a takeaway from what Joanne said, if you take anything away besides that illustrious history, is that it's been proven that we have locations. In a small area, we have varied, wonderful locations. We also have climate. Climate is important. Production company needs decent climate, lots of sunshine, so they don't get rained out. What do we not have? We don't have incentives. And there's incentives on a big scale, talking about the state tax incentives or lack thereof, which I won't get into very much because that's a whole nother story. I'm going to ask Shelley to address that briefly as a way of explanation of why we don't get, at this point, the big productions. In general, it could happen. But in general, the big productions, they need those tax incentives. If they're a $100 million budget or more, you know, they need to go somewhere else. They need to go to New Mexico that has good tax incentives. But that's okay, this little visual aid here, that's okay, because while we're trying to, the industry in Arizona is trying to make strides in getting statewide tax incentives to bring the big boys in. That's a whole nother story, as I said, but there is some progress being made. But while we're working on that, there's a whole pool. For every $100 million film there's 100 lower budget films being made. Why? Because you've heard of the digital revolution. And this is just to give you an example. If I turn this little boy on, and I'm about $2,000 worth of equipment here total, plus another $1,000 of peripherals that are not on the camera because I've got it stripped down, plus me, who doesn't have to be particularly skilled. If I can walk somewhat smoothly, and I can pan, and I can do some dolly shots, and if I can push a button that has digital stabilization, I can do all sorts of things here. Don't worry, I'm not filming, George. It's okay. I can do all sorts of things here with this and other ingenious, cheap options. And I can get some pretty good, right, Justin? Get some pretty good shots. It's not going to be up to the quality of the $100 million film, but it's going to be pretty close for the price we're paying. So since it's so much cheaper now and easier to do with less personnel, not tens of thousands of dollars in Steadicam equipment, etc., everybody's making movies. Now that's good and it's bad because everybody's making movies and some people don't know how to make movies and we get some bad content. But that's getting better as people get more familiar with the equipment gets better, the transition to the whole digital venue is becoming much more common, so we're getting some really good content for a lot less money. That's a huge pool of production that we want to pull from. We want to dip our hands into that stream and bring them here. What are we doing to do that? We are working, as a film industry in Arizona, we're working on actively soliciting films to come in, productions to come in. We are putting together various concierge services, and when I say we, I'm talking about this effort by the development group and local people in the industry to put together this concierge service to give information to productions, whether we solicit them actively or they come wandering around, they've seen photos, they've talked to other people who have filmed here, and they come and say, what have you got? Our toolbox is very important to say, here's what we've got. Because we're in competition with other parts of the state to bring people in to our little corner of the world. And any little tool that helps us tip the scales is very helpful. Where you come in with that is, we don't have the big tax incentives, let's give them some local incentives. If a business is willing to cut them a deal on a block of hotel rooms, that gives us ammunition to say, yeah, come and look at our locations. Now, if we don't have the locations they want, or a few other fairly important things, there's nothing we can do about it. But if we have the locations they want, the time of year, the accessibility by freeway, which you're absolutely right, we're in a good location for that, 9-hour drive from LA. If we have that, but they're looking at another area up north of Phoenix, say, we might be able to tilt the scales by saying, we've got some incentives for you. We've got these local businesses, and this is the pitch, by the way. We softened you up with some food, and now here's the pitch. As local businesses, if you can express an interest in working with a film production that is looking at our area, that helps a lot. If you're willing to be part of our concierge list that the development group wants to put together, and you don't have to commit. You don't have to say, yes, I'll give a 10% discount to yada, yada, yada. If you're willing to talk to these production companies and we can say to them, here's a list of people that are film friendly, want to talk to you about getting your business in here, that's wonderful, because then their line producer can call you and say, so we need this many rooms for this many nights. What can you do? And you say, well, here's what I can do. So, I mean, that's a no-brainer. I'm not asking you to do something that doesn't work for you. I'm asking you to be open to talking to these production companies and seeing if you can be part of our effort to bring them in. And part of the effort to talk about what you want to do with this place, this would be a fantastic production office. Again, depending on what else you had going on in here. I'm not going to try to address specifics with you because it's so event specific. The size of the film depends on what they need, etc. But if you have this place as a convention center or your special event center or whatnot, this is one of the first places I'd send them. Gammons Gulch can handle a certain number of people for production office, etc. But if it gets past a certain number, we need a facility and a centralized location. So that I think is a very good possibility here. And it's not just to get exposure locally. If you're willing to be on this database to talk to production companies, be willing to discuss with them offering some kind of incentive, then that would also be part of a statewide database, Real Deal, that I just heard about this morning from our new state film commissioner, because we now have, I'm going to let you address that exciting news, but it would be part of a statewide database as well, so you get some good exposure there. And not just what you might be able to do with your business, with meal discounts for a certain block of meals, or hotel discounts, or a discount at the hardware store. And again, a lot of this is just philosophy, just attitude. Yes, it's about the numbers, but if we can say, yes, we're friendly, we're production friendly. We're not going to bend over backwards for you, we're not going to give you freebies, but we want to talk to you about your business. Believe me, that makes a big difference, because there are a lot of communities that have no centralized go-to, no cohesive vision, no particularly welcoming, why yes, we love films, and that goes a long way, it really does.